Everybody, we thank you for joining us here on Sunday School Bonanza, getting you gospel doctrine ready, whether you can go to class or whether you need a refresher so that you go in there and actually have something to say in the lesson rather than playing Words with Friends on your tablet. So we're on lesson 32 this week. It's called To Seal the Testimony. We're talking about the martyrdom. And who better than to bring this in than the much lauded manager and creator of Leading LDS. Once again, we're joined by Kurt Frankham. Hi, Kurt.
Thank you for having me back again. You know, I was nervous the first time you not call my number, but here I am again, so I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun last time.
We let him come back, everybody.
Nice.
I thought about not doing it, but then I was in a bind. No, but Kurt does great work, and of course you can go to leadinglds.com and talk about leadership in the church and what that means, and we hope you'll do that, definitely. We consider Leading LDS one of the better friends of the Twin family, so we hope you'll check it out. All right. The martyrdom. I don't even know where to begin. This is a very interesting lesson. I mean, so we're just going to talk about, it leads off, I think Kurt was going to talk about this, sort of how the martyrdom happened, what went down.
Yeah, and, you know, I just want to say, as far as martyrdom goes, you know, it just, as the title of the lesson, To Seal the Testimony, it is such an appropriate seal of such an amazing prophet that lived in the latter days. You know, and I would imagine, what if the martyrdom didn't happen, and maybe, you know, Joseph Smith lived to a ripe old age like Brigham Young did, and sure, he would have been an amazing prophet. It would have been amazing to have such a long history of, you know, what he said, what he taught, and so forth. But the fact that, you know, he did die, that he was willing to die, just takes it to even further as a testament from him that everything that he said was absolutely from his own perspective and accord, and that he believed every ounce of it, and so going through the martyrdom, you know, obviously being at the Carthage jail, the famous Carthage jail, I've been there, and it's well worth your vacation time.
Is it a tour with like elderly missionaries, kind of?
Yeah.
Or is it kind of like Sacred Grove, Sister Missionaries, whatever? Just
no. It's definitely not. From what I remember, anyways, it's not a self-guided tour. I mean, they have a missionary take you up there, and then I think, you know, rooms are roped off and so forth. But they do have a separate visitor center that's, I guess, more of a self-guided tour.
And it's a reconstruction, right? Or is it the original building?
Well, it's definitely, it's always been there. It's not reconstructed like many of the others, from what I understand. I may be wrong on this, but it was a house at one time, like after a jail, and they have these pictures of like people living there, and the door's still there with a hole in it, and it's remarkable. So
cool.
So, anyways, I guess the lesson doesn't give too much as far as what got him there, but obviously with the the opposition was just coming to a head at that point, of the church, and then he's found with John Taylor and Willard Richards in the Carthage jail, and now, of course, Hiram, his brother, is there as well. So, anyway, is that a good synopsis? I don't know if I'm missing a key point.
I love it. Right. It's great. So we had all of them there. We had, everybody's in the and then the martyrdom happened when, of course, everyone stormed, muskets everywhere. Hiram was the first one to get hit. And then, you know that John Taylor was hit. He was with them as well. But he rolled over quickly and got under a bed and managed to actually survive his wounds, which I believe, wasn't that also prophesied by Joseph Smith?
Yeah. So in the lesson, he gives a promise to Willard Richards as well.
He gave one to Willard Richards, but
yeah, for John Taylor I'm not sure, but, you know, Willard Richards, in this lesson, it goes through Willard Richards' account, and he was promised that, let's see, do you have that quote in front of you? I'm trying to find it. I should have marked it.
Yeah, let me find it right here. It's down near the bottom. Very, very cool. So Willard Richards received a prophecy from Joseph Smith. You can find this in History of the Church 619. And the prophet said that, quote, the time would come that the balls would fly around him like hail, and he should see his friends fall on the right and on the left, but that there should not be a hole in his garment, which is exactly what happened. Yeah. And this was well before this incident. You saw that.
Yeah, and from what I understand,
John Taylor survived.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, John Taylor survived his wounds, and of course, Hiram and Joseph were killed.
Right, and from what I understand, Willard Richards wasn't necessarily your typical lean man at that time. I think, for a man that was maybe the easiest target to, having this prophecy of saying he wouldn't have a hole in his clothes is pretty powerful. And this lesson goes through his account of what happened during the martyrdom and so forth. And one kind of off the wall reference, the Mormon Channel did an interview with some members of the church history department, and they go through different myths that are out there in the church, everything from the Brigham Young not putting leaving these empty shafts in the Salt Lake Temple for elevators, when in reality there were elevators back then, and so forth. And then
right.
And then they talk about this, the martyrdom, where John Taylor's watch is known, and even mentions in Willard Richards' account that a bullet hit the watch when he goes to the window when he gets shot. And I guess they've had all sorts of research done on the forensics. They had some forensics people come in and really study this as far as what a bullet would do to a watch, and they've concluded that that simply just didn't happen. And the hardest part about that myth is that John Taylor started it. And anyways, it's worth to check out on the Mormon Channel. I think it's on the Legacy program about myths. And who knows, what happened, because it is a cool story or whatever. But they anticipate it broke when he ran to the window, leaned on the sill, and kind of broke the watch at that time. But
I like that we're sort of owning up to some of those things in that way too. That our own channel is trying to debunk Mormon legends and stuff.
Because they're great stories without these things. We don't need to to take them to any more of a fairy tale by any means. This was an amazing experience, a tragic experience as well, obviously. But it's kind of interesting to learn those things as far as what really happened and so forth.
Well, and the amazing things to think about, to digress a little bit, to think about the fact that John Taylor survived this. This is way back in, the 1840s, 1840. I'm very bad with my years. But thank you. But to think about this, decades and decades later, John Taylor was president of the church. He dedicated the Logan Temple, which still stands today. He did all sorts of remarkable things, and it's amazing to think what could have happened if he hadn't survived. It would have been just very different. It's just really remarkable to think that this one incident, that he was right there with Joseph Smith. You think of a president of the church who lived, until 1887, and that man was right there with Joseph Smith when it happened. That's pretty amazing.
And what purpose it had, and I don't know if I'm jumping us too far ahead, but as he went on to pen section 135, I believe it is.
Sure, yeah, he did.
Where he talks about Joseph Smith and the benefit that we received from Joseph Smith, and that he was, I lost the verbiage right in front of me, but only Jesus Christ.
Joseph Smith, the prophet and seer of the Lord, has done more, save Jesus only, for the salvation of men in this world than any other man that ever lived in it.
Yeah,
that's what he said. I might as well read the rest of this verse. It's great.
Yeah.
It says, in the short space of 20 years, he brought forth the Book of Mormon, which he translated by the gift and power of God, and has been the means of publishing it on 2 continents, has sent the fullness of the everlasting gospel, which it contained, to the 4 quarters of the earth, has brought forth the revelations and commandments which composed this book of Doctrine and Covenants, and many other wise documents and instructions for the benefit of the children of men, gathered many thousands of the Latter-day Saints, founded a great city, and left a fame and name that cannot be slain. He lived great and died great in the eyes of God and his people, and like most of the Lord's anointed in ancient times, has sealed his mission and his works with his own blood. And so has his brother Hiram. In life they were not divided, and in death they were not separated. Yeah. So that's that really famous verse in section 135.
And this is another testament of John Taylor surviving. Is imagine if everybody just died, in the martyrdom, and we wouldn't have that perspective to truly know what happened and so forth. And so John Taylor, as you've even a few weeks ago, and as talking about Parley P. Pratt and converting John Taylor, and John Taylor, he had such purpose and a plan in place from not only becoming the prophet but also testifying of the martyrdom and writing these verses and so forth. It's remarkable.
So let's talk about some of the things that Joseph Smith that changed because of Joseph Smith, or what was restored or revealed in that sense. This is sort of where the lesson goes after this. It's almost just listing these things off to talk about them, but I love it. Truths about the Godhead, I'm passionate about this. To actually realize that it still in this day is a novel concept to many to think of God and Jesus Christ as distinct individuals.
Yeah.
And that's an amazing thing that just happened in the first vision. And, the great things we talk about in the first vision account are, none of the churches are true. Here's the true church. And so often we overlook the fact that there it was, veritable proof of two distinct
there
beings.
were two people there. Like, not that was the
awesome.
content of their discussion, but the fact that there were two separate beings is remarkable.
Yeah, and that's a massive question. And it's still, I think as Latter-day Saints, of course it confuses us that others wouldn't feel this way. But I think anyone in any religion is confused why other people don't agree with them. But, how can you read scriptural accounts in the Old Testament and the New Testament and everything and not see the distinction within the Godhead of individuals? I think and I love seeing that play out in modern times, how true we know that is. It's just awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I think it looks like he goes on to talks about the priesthood. I liked a few weeks ago, when Al was on Sunday School Bonanza, he referenced this, that it wasn't necessarily Joseph Smith that restored the gospel. It was restoring the priesthood, and then the priesthood restored the gospel. I thought that was a good perspective.
Okay. That is a good perspective.
And so that's one of the one items on this list here of the authority of the priesthood, such a pivotal doctrine that had to be restored in order for him to restore so many other things.
Yeah. And then we get some vital stuff, like referencing section 76, which is a whopper, and the Book of Abraham, of course, like truths about our origin, our relationship to God. Stuff like this could be the fact that we are literally spirit children of God, and really understanding the pre-existence that we lived with him, that we didn't just show up, that we had a whole plan before us. And that's huge. I mean, these are incredibly important verses that teach us remarkable things. And it's great to think about this because we have the Bible and the Book of Mormon, which we lean on so much. But if you think about restoring the gospel without the Doctrine and Covenants, or having the church without the Doctrine and Covenants, I mean, that's a gigantic chunk of vital modern revelation that we would not have. And so it's
remarkable. I mean, section 76, so much truth comes out of that. Doctrinal truth out of that section. It's remarkable. So,
and then of course we have scriptures. We got more scriptures. I don't really need to elaborate. I just kind of said that anyway. So there we go. Scriptures. And the final ones here. Let's see here. We have
salvation of the dead. The truth.
That's a huge
truths
one.
about plan of salvation. I mean that. The missionaries. The full-time missionaries go around just talking about the plan of salvation, and it just captivates the human nature in all of us. Is where did I come from? Why am I here? Where am I going? That's had such an impact on the truths we know today. Yeah,
and I really saw that a lot of the time. I think in some older church videos, they don't do as much nowadays, but very much that stuff. Why am I here? Where am I going?
Right.
The very 80s videos, those were great. And lastly, one of the biggest ones, of course, temples. I mean, the fact that we have modern-day temple, which is built upon temple work in the ancient era of the tabernacle and the Temple of Solomon and these things, that is incredible and awesome to me. And something I love personally so much in the gospel is realizing how much we pull from the Old Testament. And a lot of modern-day Christianity kind of tries to just not pay a lot of attention to the Old Testament. And I think that, especially through Joseph Smith, we really see how the Book of Mormon reinforces the Bible, how the New Testament's built upon the Old Testament, and how it really all comes together. And you see that in no better place than the temple. I mean, absolutely. Yeah. You see these ordinances that are rooted in ancient stuff, but great covenants, promises, instruction, illumination, and all that came through Joseph Smith. And I'm grateful that he was able to live, I believe, obviously for the restoration of all temple blessings. Different stages they came, but there they were.
Yeah.
He didn't live to see a single temple that actually stuck around, unfortunately, and served its full purpose. But pretty awesome.
Yeah. And from a Sunday school teacher perspective, there's some sweet videos to use during this that they have listed on the right that could really make it a engaging lesson. But the church has done awesome highlighting his life and making sure we understand his purpose and so forth.
And I love the Joseph Smith movie, personally.
It's a good one. So,
have you seen the new version of it? 'Cause they changed it a couple of years ago.
Is this the restoration one they show at Legacy Theater? Or?
Yeah, the longer one, the one that's like an hour long. There was the original cut, and then they recut the whole film. And that one currently plays at the Legacy Theater and visitor centers. And the old one, I think you can still find on YouTube. Like the church puts it out. But it's funny because it's a totally different cut. And they actually have it from the perspective of Joseph Smith's mother. And this is all original footage. It's just they recut it to do something totally different. They cut out that.
I need to go back, check it out.
You should. They cut out the entire subplot of the father and daughter traveling from England on the riverboat, which is sort of the narrative device.
Yes,
it's gone. Not even there.
Well, one last thing I want to say, Jeff, in regards to Joseph Smith in this lesson is a few years back. I was called as a bishop when I was 28, and as we talked to before, it's not by any reason, by anything special. It just the dynamic of the ward and the the demographics of the ward. That's just the way it worked out. But I remember
you can just say it. You're the only white guy. You can say it.
No, but I remember moments of just thinking like, man, at the end of the day, I am just a punk 29-year-old. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, and here I am that people are turning to me for merit advice, for welfare help, and so forth. And I remember being guided to the life of Joseph Smith, and especially to, I think he died when he was 38, I want to say. And you look at all these things he's done and what he brought forth, and I remember reading about Zion's Camp and thinking, he was a 29-year-old that was doing this. And, now in the modern day church, we just see these leaders, in the 12 that are so, that are older, that are distinguished, that have this amazing life that they can draw from. And at the end of the day, Joseph Smith, he was just this 30-year-old that was inspired, but was doing his best to figure it out. And to look back and all these things that were brought forth because of it is remarkable.
That's awesome and perfectly said. And I would be blown away. I can't even imagine being in your shoes, because I would feel the exact same way. Just like, what do I do? Are you serious, Heavenly Father? This is proof of modern revelation, because anyone who knows better would not put me in this position. Right. But I definitely feel that. So what a great man. So this is, of course, we'll get to that. So Kurt, we thank you for being here.
Yeah.
And
anytime.
Great for you to take the time to do it. Go find him on Leading LDS. Follow his various posts, podcasts, things that they do. Find us, of course, at thisweekinmormons.com and on iTunes, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, blah, blah, blah. But we love it when you shoot us an email at contact@thisweekinmormons.com. And we like to hear how we're doing. I kid you not, we've received some incredible emails about Sunday School Bonanza in the past. So I hope you know that we really appreciate it. Everyone, this is lesson 32. It's called To Seal the Testimony, all about the prophet Joseph. Definitely give it a read. You'll be better off that you do. We once again thank Kurt Franken for being here, and this has been Sunday School Bonanza by